Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Janakalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Satchidananda Rupaya Vishvotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Namaha. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pranamami Hari Priye. I'm assuming they can hear. I hope so. Okay. Om Janma. Do you want me to try to break it up? I'm not so good at that. Janmadyasya yataha anvaya. You have to help me then. Adita taraha. Adita? I don't think I should try that. I really don't. I'm not. If I had it, actually, maybe I... Sorry, everyone online. Yeah, I have to bring another copy. Janmadyasya yaton vayati taratas charteshva vignyaswarat. Janmadyasya yaton vayati taratas charteshva vignyaswarat. Tene brahma hridaya adikavaye. Adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayaha tejo varimradam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisham Dhamna swena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi dharma projita kaitavotra paramo Paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Kim va parerishvaraha sadyo ridyavarudyate trakritibihi ridyavarudyate trakritibihi Shubhistakshanaat Takshanaat Nigamakalpatoror Galitam Palam Galitam Palam Shukamukharamrita Dravasamyutam Khatamrita Samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka Ho Rasika Bhavuka. Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari Hari bol, Mukunda Madhava Govinda bol, Madhava Govinda bol, Mukunda Madhava Govinda bol, Govinda bol, Keshava Madhava Govinda bol, Shava Madhava Govinda bol, Keshava Madhava Govinda bol, Keshava Madhava Hari Hari bol, Madhava Hari Hari bol, Keshava Madhava Hari Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari Hari bol, Mukunda Madhava Govinda bol, Mukunda Madhava Govinda bol, Keshava Madhava Govinda bol, Govinda bol, Keshava Madhava Govinda bol, Keshava Madhava Keshava Madhava Hari Hari bol, Keshava Madhava Hari Hari bol, Keshava Madhava Hari Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari Hari bol, Mukunda Madhava Govinda bol, Mukunda Madhava Govinda bol, Govinda bol, Govinda bol, Govinda bol, Govinda bol. Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki jai, Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj ki jai. Bhagavan. So, after seeing his Leela with Putana, removing that, totally purifying her by his touch, Then we saw Shakatasur, who represented, materialism. Okay. Putting the Chaitanya Swarupa, or the living consciousness, making that less under the inert things, right? But of course, you don't have to always think of the symbolism. You can just revel in the lila. That's the sweet. That's his sweetness. But so Shakatasura. Then was Trinavarta, the one that, the asura that came in the form of the whirlwind, and what did he represent? Desires, yeah. Materialistic desires, yeah? That blinds us, creates darkness, tamas and rajas, right? And the emptiness of the objects themselves, because the joy, the bliss is coming from our own Atma, Bhagavan's presence within our heart. All right, so now, and we also saw the Mother Yashoda's first experience of looking into Bhagavan's mouth and seeing all that. But she closed her eyes. She couldn't. It was too much for her. Too much for her. And Bhagavan wanted her to maintain that bhava of mother, being mothered. So now, Vasudeva, by his advice, or not advice, his he initiated Garga Muni, who was the guru of the Yadavas, the Yadus, and Vasudevji wanted Garga Muni to go and do the naming ceremony for baby Krishna and Balaramji. Now, he did that secretly, and Garga Muni went to Vraja. And when Nanda Maharaj saw him, he was just elated. He was elated, and he worshipped him, and he glorified him, and he said, this he does Jyotish, the astrological for the children. And so Nanda Maharaj said, you have founded and formulated this. Now, I don't know if there's different Jyotish, but anyway, Nanda Maharaj said this. And he also said that your blessing coming to our home is a blessing just as it is for any householder to have a holy person come to their home. It is a great blessing indeed, and for their all-round welfare. So he said, it is not meaningless that you have come here. So, and he said, please do the naming ceremony for our two little boys. Now, Garga Muni said, it is better that I do not do this publicly, because Kamsa will start to suspect something. Because he knows that you, Nanda Maharaj, and Vasudevji are close to each other. Garga Muni himself doesn't mention that Krishna and Balaram are actually the children of Devaki and Vasudeva. See, he's very compassionate. And Vasudeva has never mentioned it as well. So he says, let us do it secretly. Otherwise, Kamsa will suspect and try to kill them. So Nanda Maharaj, let us go into the cowshed to make it secret. And so they did that in quiet, in secret. And when he did the ceremonies, he said, this son of Rohini will be known as Rama, Balaram. Because Rama means to delight. Because he will delight all the people with his great virtues. And he called Bala because of his great excessive strength. And he will also be called Sankarshana because he will unite the people, unite the Yadus. Sankarshana, one meaning is to pull, so pull together. Of course, he didn't mention that he had been pulled from Devaki's womb, mystically pulled, and and placed in Rohini's womb. So he doesn't mention that. And he says this in very veiled language. He says, this younger boy, he's going on to Shri Krishna now. He says this younger boy, has come in every age. Meaning, so Nanda Maharaj took it as, reincarnated, right? And now he has taken up a dark complexion. In other ages, he was another color, like red as the boar, the Varaha, right? Yellow as Vamana. I don't know how he was yellow, but maybe pale anyway, right? So Krishna will be his most popular name. He was born as Vasudev's son elsewhere, meaning in another, Ananda Maharaj takes in another time. So he will be known as Vasudev. The lengthening of that syllable means son of in this context. So he's been born, before as a son of Vasudeva. And many other names he's had. In fact, so many names that no one knows them all. And this boy, Krishna, will be so dear to everyone, and he will protect you from all difficulties and harms. In fact, this child of yours is like or equal to, actually says like Lord Narayana himself, in respect of fame and prowess and all his great virtues, like Narayana. Look after him with all attention. And so after this, Nanda Maharaj just felt so blessed and fulfilled. And then Muni went away quietly. And now, so as the divine little boys it began crawling on their hands and knees, and they would get into all kind of slushy, muddy places, into the cow dung even. But their mothers delighted in all this. And as they were crawling, their ankle bells would tingling, tingling. And it would delight them as well as all the people. Right? And when their mothers would pick them up, this is a very, very sweet mention by Swami Akandanandaji. He says, even with the mud and the dung on the beard, the mothers would pick them up and just adore them. And he said, that's true Vatsalya Bhav. When the mother doesn't say, clean up first and then I'll hug you. Actually, I know someone might have that happen to somebody. Anyway, so sweet, There's no condemnation or judgment or whatever, Just love, just love. That's what Akandanandaji says. So they were just thrilled with the smiles on their babies' faces and their newly sprouted teeth. And then, when they grew up a little bit more, they would catch the calves and the cows by their tails and let the calves drag them, again, more through the mud. And the mothers, got so worried they didn't know whether to let go of their household chores and always be watching and protecting. How a mother must have to do that, at that young age. Because constantly anything can happen, right? So they didn't know which to. So, and all the other gopis in the community, they never wanted to lose sight of Sri Krishna and Balaramji. And so they would find any excuse to come to Mother Yashoda and complain. And whereas they were really delighting in everything that they would do. And he says, they say, in fact, Akandananji also mentions here that Shukadev himself, who's narrating this, never says that he never says himself that Krishna stole or thieved anything. He only refers to what the gopis are saying to Mother Yashoda. And so the gopis say, "Oh, Mother, he comes and releases the calves even before milking time. And if anyone scolds him, he just laughs at them. And then he makes arrangements to thieve away the sweet milk products. And he consumes all the milk and the curds and the everything, and then distributes it all to the monkeys, the rest to the monkeys that follow him. And if he can't get to the pots hanging in the, what would you call it, the sheds, the mataki? The shed, where they would put to become curds and all. Yeah? So if he couldn't reach it, sometimes if he couldn't get to the pots and couldn't find anything, he would go away angry and he'd pinch the little babies, making them cry. Otherwise, he would get all his friends together and devise ways of climbing on top of each other. We know that famous pictures of Krishna climbing on top of the shoulders of the other boys. And sometimes he'd make holes in the pots and drain out all those goodies inside. And otherwise, again, distribute it to the monkeys. In fact, one time, there's a story somewhere that he went to his mother, maybe the whole community, and said, "The sages are coming. The saints are coming. They're coming into town. We have to get everything ready for them, all the sweets and nice foods." And they would bring out everything, and then all the monkeys would run there, and Krishna would give it out all to the monkeys. He said, "The sages." So the sages were those monkeys. And of course, it said that those monkeys were with Sri Ram. And so out of gratitude to the monkeys for helping them, he gave everything to them. So, and even if the shed is too dark to be able to see where the curds and everything is hanging there, they say the brilliance of his light shines through all the jewels and everything on his body, and he creates light in the shed. And all this he does when the gopis are busily attending to their household duties. Sometimes he even answers the calls of nature in the courtyard and runs away. Oh, I could tell you an experience I had in Vrindavan. Okay, now look at him. He stands there, a picture of innocence, after having done so much mischief. See, he gets up to this mischief when the Mother Yashoda or the gopis are attending to their household duties. Yeah. He doesn't want them to forget him for a moment. Huh? You know, in the Bible it says that our God is a jealous God. Now that jealousy means this kind of jealousy. means for our own, he knows what brings us bliss, joy, peace. So he doesn't want anything else to be taking our mind's attention, our heart's attention. A picture of innocence. Yeah. The gopis represented all this to Yashoda, looking now and then at the face of Sri Krishna that was all the more beautiful because of the signs of pretended fright. And the only response of Yashoda was to laugh away the whole thing. She just could not bring herself to scold Sri Krishna. And so now, this was around when Bhagavan's about 5, 6 years old. Now, here's a question. Was he really stealing anything? Why or why not? Huh? And everything belongs to him. Everything belongs to God, right? So if anyone's stealing, we're stealing, you know? So he's taking it back in order to free us, right? And I'm sure you all know this, as Gurudev used to say a lot, bring out a lot, that the butter represents, it can represent vasanas also. Bhagavan steals those away. And we'll also see in the later Leela that it is the essence that comes from the churning. I'll bring that out later in the other Leela. So now, one day, Sri Krishna, Balaramji, and all his playmates, the gopas, young little gopas, were playing outside. And Mother Yashoda was out watching them. And some of the little boys came and said, Maya. Can I pronounce it right? Maya. Mother. Krishna ate mud. Krishna ate mud. And Balaramji came up and said, yes, it's true. Maya, he ate mud. Little. And Mother Yashoda took him, and she said, did you eat mud, you mischievous fellow? Why did you eat mud secretly? Your friends and even your elder brother have said so. And Sri Krishna protested. He said, Mother, I have not done this. They are telling a lie. If you think they're telling the truth, please look in my mouth and see. In front of them. And the moment he said this, she said, all right, open your mouth. And Sri Hari, the stealer, who became a child out of sport, opened his mouth. And she saw within it the whole universe of moving and unmoving entities. The sky, the space, the heavens, earth, the mountains, the oceans, including the total wind, total air, total fire. She saw all the deities presiding over the elements. She saw the elements themselves. She saw the faculties, our indriyas, our powers of perception and action. She saw those in subtle form. She saw the gunas of Prakriti. She saw within her child the whole universe with all its diversities and distinctions. She saw jiva, and the distinctions of the jiva. She saw time, the time principle. She saw swabhav, all in nature. She saw vasanas, caused by karma. She saw mind. One mind, not two. What was more, she was filled with worry and doubts to see within his mouth even the land of Raja. And she saw herself, Raja. What does drop the mic mean? What does that mean? Stop talking? I don't know. I've never known what the meaning is. I don't know how to do it.
Put it in the back.
Sorry, folks. I'll try to hold it. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah. He said, I'm done. And if we see that, we're done, okay? All right. So she was very confused. Yeah, I looked. She said, what can this be? Is this a dream? Or is this the Lord's Maya? Or is my brain off? Or can this be due to some extraordinary powers of my little child? I salute that supreme, mysterious being by whom, out of whom, and on whose support this whole world has its existence. A world which is a mystery to the mind of man. She said, oh, my only support is he whose Maya, by whose Maya, I have come to think wrongly that I am Yashoda. Nanda is my husband, and this is my son. That I am the princess or queen of Vrindavan. Queen meaning the head of the, the wife of the head of the cowherds. So she didn't know what it was, how that had happened, because she doesn't even remember the initial experience. That had been, yeah. Lord took that a memory away. And then again the Lord cast the Vishnu's Maya upon her because he wanted that parental affection to be still there. And at once Yashodaji lost even the memory of the experience she had. And she gathered up little Krishna in her arms. And Shukadev says here, he whom the followers of the Vedic Karmakanda speak of as Indra and other deities, whom the Vedantins call Brahman, whom the Sankhya speak of as Purusha, the Yogins call Atman, and whom the devotees call Bhagavan, that Hari was considered as her own son by Yashodaji. So this is such a, and there's some beautiful, I know, bhajans written on this Leela. So again, did he eat mud? Did he eat mud? Yes. So, from the highest standpoint, there's nothing outside of him. Nothing other, as Krishna says in the Gita, right? There's nothing higher nor other than me. So if there's nothing other than me, there's nothing outside to put inside. There's no inside or outside. And so people forget, this is a note from another Mahatma, people forget God or truth, and remembering only the vessels, this was actually with the other, but Krishna destroys all things or removes all things that come in the way of constant remembrance of him. So as the I'll go ahead here. So it said that he's saying, I didn't eat mud. Was he telling a lie? No, he's true from the standpoint of absolute truth, because there's nothing outside of me, he's saying. And also, because he is that infinite, there's no doer. Self is non-doer. So there's no doing. Indivisible. There's no doer, thing, object, and no doing. All is that one. And also, because mud is also called raja sometimes, right? Raja. So rajas is not outside of Bhagavan or Atman. Again, everything is him, and yet he has come to play in this divine form so that we, with our rajas tamas, can see his play and be attracted, drawn into he who is the source of all. So, now, so then King Parikshit asks a question of Shukadev, and he says, "O Holy One, how is it? What meritorious action was done by Nanda and Yashoda to have this great blessing to have Sri Krishna as their own child?" Because, in fact, they weren't his actual parents. What did they do? And so Shukadev says that that starts at the end of, in my text, page 69. Yeah, and then top of 70. So he says that before Sri Krishna was born on earth, when the Devas, Mother Earth went to the Devas went to Brahmaji, and then Brahmaji told all the Devas to go and be born first on earth. Remember, we have to go do something first. And so Drona, not Dronacharya, another Drona, who was leader of the Vasus, of the elemental forces. So he and his wife Dhara asked Brahmaji if, when they were asked to be born on earth, they asked, may we have in our embodiment on earth that supreme devotion to Sri Hari, the Lord of all, by means of which people easily cross this ocean of samsara. And Brahmaji granted them that boon. And they became Nanda and Yashoda. So that's all they asked for, was to have supreme devotion for the Lord. And he was loved by them in that aspect more than any gopa or gopi in the Gokul. So in order to fulfill the words of Brahmaji, Krishna, along with Brahma, stayed in Vraja and gave supreme joy to them. Now, another famous Leela. So once, Mother Yashoda had been doing her household chores, and she was engaged in churning the curds. But as she was churning, what was she doing? She was only remembering Sri Krishna and Balaramji, singing songs about their childhood plays and leelas. That's all she was remembering. And in fact, just by thinking of Sri Krishna, her milk would flow, even just remembrance. And as she was churning, and then the flowers from her hair would slowly drop, and she was perspiring from that effort. And Hari, notice he's called certain names in certain leelas, where it has that meaning. The one who steals, the divine thief. He came up, he was thirsty for milk, and he grabbed her hand and stopped her from churning. Akanda Nanaji says here, what is the need for churning when the nectar has already been achieved? No, meaning the churning, you know that, the churning of the milky ocean. That elixir, or that nectar, is Bhagavan himself. And she would feel delight, even with him interrupting her her labor. And she would hold him and nurse him and watch the beautiful smiles on his face. And just then, she noticed the milk inside on the fire, on the stove, starting to boil over. And she let down Bhagavan and she ran inside. That was before he had had his fill. And he pouts. He pouts with his lips. And his eyes became red and his lips trembled. And he began to bite his lips. And he took a stone roller, like I said, dough roll. And he went to the churning pot, and he let all the contents out. But with make-believe tears in his eyes, looking from side to side, he ran to another solitary place in the house. And he sat there eating lumps of butter that he took from the store. And after Yashodaji had taken the milk off the stove, she came back and she saw the broken pot and the curd spilt all over the floor. And she knew who was responsible. Now, she laughed at it, actually, and she couldn't see the boy anywhere. And she went looking for him, and she caught sight of him sitting on an upturned mortar, throwing lumps of butter to the monkeys. And occasionally with the fear of discovery, writ large on his face, he was looking. Is she going to discover me? He was glancing here and there. Yashoda approached him slowly from behind with a stick in hand. And on seeing the mother approach, he got up in great haste and ran away, as if in mighty fear. The mother also followed him whom even a yogi's mind, well prepared by practice and austerity, fails to reach without his grace. She ran after him, and he was running and weeping from a sense of guilt, rubbing his eyes and the collyrium on his eyes was starting to be smeared all over his face. And but he was caught by Mother Yashoda, and she just held up that stick. But then she couldn't. She threw away the stick and decided to instead to tie him up to the mortar. Beautiful verse here. He who has neither inside nor outside, who has neither before nor after, who is yet the before and after, the inside and the outside of the whole universe, nay, who is the universe itself. Him, the unmanifest and the supreme, sporting a human form, the master of the senses, him, the gopi, taking for her child, tried to fasten to the mortar. And she took a rope and put it around him to the mortar, but it was 2 inches too short. And she got another piece of rope and attached that, and it was still 2 inches too short. She got another piece and another. And every time she would tie it around the mortar and around little Krishna, it was always 2 inches too short. She was getting very tired. And her efforts were being, what's the word? Fruitless. Failed efforts. No matter how many pieces of rope she brought. And she was utterly astonished. And finally, she was really perspiring and more flowers falling from her hair, and she gave up. The moment she gave up her stress, her efforts, Bhagavan, out of his compassion, allowed himself to be tied to the mortar. And Shukadev says, Sri Hari has thus shown how he subordinates himself to his devotees, although he is eternally free and is the master of all the worlds and the guardian of all deities. Neither Brahma nor Shiva nor even Sri Lakshmi, who always clings to him, could attain this measure of grace from Krishna, the bestower of liberation, as this gopi did. This is one of the most famous stories because here only love, only devotion gains that. Nothing else. And not to do anything else, but whatever else we do, whether it's study or tapas, dhanam, our karmas, our duties, dharmas, only the love that is in that is the important thing. And that is what draws Bhagavan's grace. Finally, we see here that when Yashodaji gave up her efforts, then that grace came because of her love, her devotion. And so, what are those 2 inches? That's a wonderful thing. You know what those 2 inches are? They're the 2 I-ness and minus. We can't gain him. We can't tie him up with I-ness and minus. And of course, that's the subtle difficulty, isn't it? To be performing our actions, our duties, but without that I-ness and minus, but only with devotion. there's another reference to a biblical reference that, I may. This is famous in the West. St. Paul says, I may speak with the tongues of angels. I may. What is it? I may move mountains with my, power of faith, whatever. It says many things, right? But he says, but those are nothing except love. Do you remember how it is said? Yeah. That love alone is the only thing that matters. Also, you see, the mortar, what's the shape of a mortar? Uluk, right? Is that the word? Uluk. What else is shaped like that? Damaru. Shiva's Damaru, which represents time. So, Bhagavan cannot be bound by time, by space, by object, of course, because he is everything. He cannot be bound to time. He cannot be bound by anything, by our concepts of God, by our perception, expectations, etc. He cannot be bound by anything. So, surrender. Surrender is the final, only the gateway. And he takes over. So, it is said, as long as Yashoda-ji had that I-ness and my-ness, of course hers was minimal, right? She couldn't tie him down. But when she surrendered her efforts, the Lord's grace came, and she gained him. And Akandanandaji says, where do we gain the Lord? We gain the Lord only in the lap of our hearts. And that we gain only through love. And what this Leela also demonstrates or symbolizes is the Lord allows himself to be bound by the love of his devotees, and also that even though he is limitless, unbound in any way, he comes into the world of limitation, of as if being bound, right, in a form, place, etc. Why? To liberate us from our bondage. He turns everything inside out, upside down, in our life as well, often. Yes. 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 Things we can't understand, especially the things that are hard and that we can't understand, right? He has that higher, he's just drawing us closer to him. Right? Because it's only when I realize that I'm not the controller of the world, things aren't going to turn out always the way I want. Right? Then we learn to let go. So, another, this is from a different reading, but this spiritual reader, and writer, very wonderful, and he says, don't seek God's blessings, seek him. It's wonderful. He has a writing about, that a lot of the time we seek his blessings, but seek him. Guruji used a similar kind of metaphor. He said, there was a candy store owner. Have you ever heard that one? And every end of every day, he would tell children of the village, he'd say, if you come at the end of the day and you tell me what candy you'd like, and I'll give you one. And so the children would do that, so they get one nice candy at the end of the day. And then there was another child who was really thought about it. And when he came, he said, "Give me the key." The key to the whole candy store. And so the key is Bhagavan himself. It's so, and there's nothing outside of him, so, you see? It's him or nothing. That's the way it is. Okay. So Brahman, Kandananji says, Brahman without qualities, how do we... So Bhagavan or Brahman in the saguna form, he comes to liberate us. Okay. So now, when Mother Yashoda then, after she had tied up Sri Krishna, she again went about her household duties. And Bhagavan didn't stop his his activities, his movement, right? And he was crawling through the yard, and there were two big trees there. You see, of course, he's all-seeing, even though he's infant. And he crawled toward those trees, dragging the heavy mortar after him. And these two trees, what happened is Bhagavan crawls in the middle of them, and that mortar, which extends, so big, the two trees come crashing down with huge noise. If you've ever heard a tree crash, it's a big sound. And again, everyone is shocked and come running to where little Sri Krishna is. Actually, I haven't. I'm remembering all this now, so we always have more time than I expect. So these trees crashed, and when everybody comes running, and again they see Bhagavan Krishna happily there in the yard, still with the mortar tied to him, this heavy thing, and he's a little baby. And what had happened is that when these trees fell, two shining celestial forms came out of them. And they bowed to Sri Krishna. And then they ascended to their celestial abode. They also were liberated. See? He, tied to the mortar, liberates. And these two jivas who had become trees, they were actually, their names were Manigriva and Nalakubara. And they were the two sons of Kubera, god of wealth. And in an earlier time, in the celestial realms, because you know what happens when... All right. So anyway, their father is very wealthy, right? And, we see that often the children of someone who's very wealthy, the children don't have to work much. So they haven't had to work hard to get the pleasure, the basics and pleasures of life. And So these two sons had gotten very, very proud, and what would you say? They just were they were drinking, they were doing everything, they were out with the girls, and uh, and one day they were out in the forest, and they were with these ladies in the lake and everything. Narada Muni comes by. And yes, Narada Rishi happens to pass by, right? And the women are, they become ashamed and they run and hide. But these two sons of Kubera, they're proud and they say, who cares? Who cares? And they were so drunk, they didn't, weren't aware of themselves. And so Naradaji, his quote curse, he cursed them to become trees. But it was actually a blessing because he says to them, for a person indulging in worldly enjoyments, wealth is the one factor that does the greatest harm. Pride of birth and other traits born of Rajoguna do not make him as faulty as the extreme wealth, For in the train of wealth come such vices as gambling, drinking, how would I use a nice word here? And other faults, promiscuity, that's the word, yeah. And it also mentions they kill mercilessly large numbers of animals for feeding themselves. So, but he says, but you will be trees in the yard of the Lord himself. Right? And interestingly, he says here, it doesn't mean that we all have to become poor, in order to become virtuous. He says, poverty is the panacea for an evil man's blindness arising from pride of wealth. And the purpose of suffering is to learn compassion and humility. Yeah. So, of course, this is for, by noticing the similarity of sufferings in others, one is likely to be moved by fellow feeling, but not so a man who has never had a thorn enter his flesh. Yeah. Oh. I'm sure we've all experienced that, When we experience something very painful, then we have greater understanding and compassion of what others, are experiencing. So that's why those experiences are also blessings for us. Right? So now there's more, and I can. But then, so these guyakas, they're called, were liberated again by the touch of Sri Krishna. And they were the trees came up by their very tap roots, like we see after hurricanes too, right? Very roots came up. That means the roots of the vasanas were purified. As if it were the fire lodged within, the two celestial beings illumined the quarters by their splendor, emerged from the trees and approaching Sri Krishna and bowing down in all humility, keeping their palms joined. I'll read just a little of this. It said, O Krishna, O Supreme Yogan, you are the transcendent, supreme being, and the first cause. Thou art not only the instrumental cause of the universe, but its material cause as well. As the universe in its subtle and gross conditions constitute thy body. The knowers of Brahman experience it so. Thou, the one without a second, do constitute the body, pranas, ahamkara, and indriyas of all beings. You are Bhagavan Vishnu, who is all-pervasive, who is time, who is the Eternal One, and who is the ruler of all. You are the subtle Prakriti, constituted of the three gunas. Its effects, like the Mahatattva. You are the all-pervading Purusha and the universal witness of all movements of Prakriti. You cannot be comprehended by any of these modifications in themselves because you are the ultimate source of them all. The seen, the object, cannot see the seer, the subject. Even the jiva cannot be the seer in regard to thee because you pre-existed the jiva, etc. Salutations to thee, Vasudeva, who is possessed of all divine glories, who is the creator, who is Brahman, and whose glory is hidden by the gunas, having their origin in him, just as the glory of the sun is hidden by the clouds, originating from him. And then they say also, it was by the blessing of that sage, Narada, that we got the opportunity of seeing thee. May our words be devoted to the narration of your excellences. May our ears be always hearing your accounts of your deeds. May our hands be engaged in your works. May our minds ever rest in constant remembrance of thy feet. May our heads always remain bowed in reverence, and may our eyes be engaged in seeing thy devotees who are really thy embodiments. This is the Bhagavat Dharma right here. Bhagavat Dharma is using all our senses of perception and action in his devotion, in his service, seva. And the Lord blessed them with a smile on his face, and they ascended. They were liberated. So, all belongs to him. Body, mind, senses, everything. So here, Narada Rishi's, what is called a curse, and we see this elsewhere in Mahabharata, all the stories, that whatever a Mahatma says, even if you think it's a curse, it's actually a blessing, because through the experience of whatever that, comes about due to the words of the Mahatma or the Lord, it becomes a blessing, because the tendency for the negative action is removed. It's erased. Yeah. Yeah. So everything that comes to us in life is liberating us. Have you heard also Gurudev's? I'll end with this. We do want to sing. His metaphor of when you're going up a mountain, driving or walking, and you're going up, but then suddenly the road goes down, or goes around a curve, and then you can't see you can't even see how close you are to the top, right? So he said, on the spiritual path, sometimes we feel descending or slipping back or whatever. But he says, no. We're actually, that's just one of those dips in the road. And then, right, because it gives us then, we not only learn through that, but It actually can even give us more momentum. Like it said, when a runner is about to sprint, one leg is back. And that leg that's back is actually giving momentum power to the runner to go forward. So, therefore, every experience is a blessing. Yeah? And it's the Lord's doing. I think that's the main thing to remember. It's Him doing, if there's any doing. Right? So, we'll sing a little bit.